I'm here with Mr. Pierre Poilievre. Mr. Poilievre, thanks for talking to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
Well, you know, it's a beautiful day here in the summer. When it's like this, I like to have a pint on the patio. What I don't like is the fact that beer taxes are going up every single year because of the escalator tax.
Yeah.
Would you repeal the escalator tax?
I'm against the escalator tax. They've got the carbon taxes, payroll taxes, higher income taxes, and if all of that drives you to drink, now you're paying more for alcohol as well. So when we take office, we will be cutting taxes and leaving more in people's pockets.
Now, you've been a politician for quite some time. We're not going to hold that against you today. But, you know, every single year we hand out a big golden shaped pig for the best of the worst in government waste. It's the Teddy Awards. Can you think of the worst example of government waste since you've taken office?
Wow, since I've taken office, that's hard. There's so many examples. I could just pick the most recent one, and that is Trudeau funding this vicious anti-Semite and anti-French bigot with taxpayers' money, and ironically doing it through a so-called anti-racism program. That is probably the most hideous recent example of government waste, and I would never let that happen when I'm Prime Minister.
You know, I get a lot of emails, a lot of calls. People are worried about the governing coalition with the NDP because the NDP, they ran on a platform, higher capital gains taxes. They want a wealth tax. They want an excess profits tax.
Yeah.
If you're the Prime Minister, will you rule out tax hikes?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. That's exactly what we want to hear. Now, one issue that was happening even before the pandemic was healthcare capacity. Now, if there's premiers that want to allow for businesses to help offload some of the pressures of the healthcare system, would you cooperate with those premiers?
The healthcare system is run by the provinces. Feds send a check, transfer payments in order to help fund those hospitals. I'll continue to provide stable and growing federal transfers to the provinces for healthcare. Right now, under Trudeau's Canada, we already have in Trudeau's Canada, a private medicine. We have private physiotherapy, chiropractic, and countless other procedures that are already available in the private sector. Now, I believe in the principles of the Canada Health Act, which ensure that everybody can get essential care without having to use their own payment. And I think that public health insurance should cover all of the essentials. My government will also make health care more affordable to taxpayers by incentivizing provinces to allow internationally trained doctors to get licensed to practice, the same for nurses, by bringing in a new 60-day guarantee that within 60 days of a newcomer applying to work in a profession like medicine, they should get a yes or no based on their tested ability. I'm going to back up small study loans for those who are not quite qualified in order to allow them to get licensed to practice in their field. That way we can get more doctors and nurses at a lower cost to the overall system, and that is how we can eliminate some of the backlog. I also encourage the provinces to get rid of the unscientific vaccine mandates that have increased the pressure on the system by shutting out perfectly qualified doctors and nurses from helping.
All right, let's shift gears just slightly. You know, we both have some family in Alberta.
Yes.
My mom's in Lethbridge, your mom's in Calgary. There's some legitimate grievances there, and one of the big ones is on the unfair equalization scheme. So if you're Prime Minister, what would you do about that $20 billion a year program?
Well, I think Alberta should be given the chance to get compensated for the sudden drop in the energy sector in 2014 onward. There's a fiscal stabilization portion of the equalization program that it was supposed to kick in, but it was capped. I would lift that cap retroactively so that Alberta can get compensated for the losses that it endured after paying in so much to the equalization system. Albertans should be able to draw out the money that they lost from the downturn in the energy sector, and I would go retroactive to 2014 to do that.
Let's talk about the economy. There's a good way to grow the economy. There's a bad way to grow the economy. The bad way is corporate welfare, bureaucrats picking winners and losers. The CTF has identified about $18 billion of corporate welfare announcements since 2017. Would you outlaw corporate welfare?
I will cut corporate welfare and use the money to lower taxes for small businesses.
Well, let's talk about businesses. Let's talk about the business taxes. Now, of course, the best way to grow the economy is low taxes, low red tape. Canada ranks in the bottom half of the OECD when it comes to business taxes. So would you also lower general business taxes in addition to small business tax cuts?
I'm not prepared to commit to that right now.
Okay. Now let's talk about another thing, another commitment that you've said. You said you want to end the war on work.
Yes.
Cutting payroll taxes, cutting income taxes. Last time we spoke, you talked about that. Can you give us a little bit more details, maybe a flatter tax regime?
Well, right now we have a war on work in the form of what I call the work meter. You've heard of a parking meter, you pay to park, but there's also something called a work meter, which is when you pay to work. This is how it happens. It's called the marginal effective tax rate, METR meter, and it's the money you lose for every dollar you earn. Now, a single mom making 55 grand a year with 3 kids who earns an extra dollar, she loses 80 cents to clawbacks and taxes. That's her meter. So you lose 80 cents on the dollar, you're keeping 20 cents. All of a sudden a loonie becomes 2 dimes. That same single mother, let's say she earns 25 bucks an hour, she's keeping $5 of that extra 25. That's below minimum wage. So it's no wonder that people feel like they can't get anywhere. They put in extra hours to earn extra dollars, but the government gobbles it up with taxes and clawbacks. I'm committed to a task force that would reform our tax and benefits to reward work by reducing the marginal effective tax rates so that that single mom or the person just trying to get off of disability by getting into a job and slowly graduating themselves into the workforce is always better off for every hour they work, every raise they earn, every bonus that they receive. People should always be rewarded and not punished for work, and I'm going to reform our tax and benefit system to make it so.
Let's talk about spending a little bit.
Yeah.
So even before the pandemic in 2018, you had the Trudeau government spending more money than the feds did during any single year during World War II, right?
Yeah.
So finding savings in the budget should be like finding water in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
So would you be willing to go line by line to have a comprehensive program spending review?
Yes. I will review every dollar we're spending to make sure we're not wasting any, and we're wasting a lot. The Liberal government is wasting a lot right now. Trudeau has doubled our national debt. One Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has added more debt than all for previous Prime Ministers combined, and that is causing inflation. It's driving up interest rates. It's making life miserable for everyday people. We won't allow that. A Poilievre government will cap government spending by bringing in a pay-as-you-go law. That means the government would have to find $1 of spending for every new dollar of spending measures. Every dollar of new spending measures must find $1 of savings to pay for it, just like your household budget works. We should impose the same trade-offs on politicians that single moms and farmers have to impose on themselves by virtue of reality, and that is what the pay-as-you-go law will do.
Let's talk about the bureaucracy for a second. Last time we spoke, you said that you would fire the governor of the Bank of Canada.
Yeah.
You said you would end the bonuses for the failing government authorities. That one in particular, I mean, great step in the right direction, but we're talking about a bureaucracy that has increased by more than 10,000 new federal employees every single year over the last few years. So what would you do to rein in that bureaucracy?
Well, like I said, pay as you go. It's a very simple law. You find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending, and that will require ministers go line by line to find opportunities to save for taxpayers. Every time a minister wants to spend more, they'll have to save more. And that's how you stop the unrelenting creep in the cost of government that has driven up inflation on the backs of Canadians.
You know, another program that redistributes money from taxpayers in one province to taxpayers in another province is employment insurance. Would you look at reforming EI?
Well, I'm definitely against the EI payroll tax hikes that Trudeau plans for January 1st, and that's what I'm going to reverse that tax increase and lower payroll taxes so that we reward work when people go into the workforce.
Let's shift gears one last time. I want to talk about advocacy and what people can do to hold their politicians accountable. We've heard you talk about reining in big, bossy government.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think is one of the hurdles to reining in the size of government?
public choice theory, which is the great economist James Buchanan identified this, that a concentrated benefit is always more politically powerful than a dispersed cost. That means that the dispersed taxpayers, the hundreds of thousands of people who live in these buildings and these houses around this suburban Vancouver neighborhood, they are too busy feeding their kids, taking them to soccer, working their jobs, running their businesses, and contributing to get politically active. Meanwhile, the special interest groups who live off the state are constantly busy beavering away to get more for themselves at public expense, and they are more politically powerful because that's all they do all day long, is lobby to get themselves more of other people's money. But the only way to stop that is if everyday people in neighborhoods like this one rise up and demand that government leave them alone and let them keep more of their money. So that's what I need. I need people to rise up with me in a great tax revolt against this insatiable, greedy Trudeau government that wants more and more of your money all the time.
You know, I had a feeling you'd say something about public choice theory. I had a feeling. Last question, and it kind of builds on the last one.
Yeah.
I hear from so many Canadians who want to hold the government accountable. They feel like they don't have the tools. So what advice would you give to someone who is like a supporter of an organization like the CTF to help push for lower taxes and less waste?
Just get more active in politics. If you don't take an interest in politics, politics will take an interest in you. Look carefully at who's doing what in Parliament on your behalf. Hold those accountable in the Trudeau government that are raising your taxes and driving up your cost of living. That's what I will do, and we will defeat them and replace Trudeau's tax and spend policies with lower taxes and more free enterprise for you when I become your Prime Minister.
Mr. Poilievre, thanks for talking to the CTF.
Good to be with you. Thank you.